Alrighty guys, back in the shop here, working on my pig trap some more. About got her done. I bolted it into the floor of this plate here. Just put 2 carriage bolts down through there. Put one here and one back there. Get my light on the subject and see what's going on. Yeah, I put one back here and one here. And then we had to have a way to keep the pigs. This is my trigger, see? This is my trigger. All it is a hinge. I bent the hinge, right? This is a piece of pipe. It's like 1 1/4 inch pipe. I cut this sliver out of it. Just one bolt through that hole right there. And that worked great. I had a piece of 3/4 plywood here, this same size. Too heavy. It was too heavy. It was just falling on its own. But this is really light. And the way you tell, you put this in the trigger, like so. Like that is in fire mode right there. That pin is coming through there, that dog. Then you take your other hand and you kind of lift up on it. Take your finger and lift up on this. That's the pressure. There's going to be pressure holding that up. And then when the pig hits this, with his nose, this plate, boom, it fires. It fires, and that's how that happens. It comes down, this pin comes up. There's going to be a loop of number 30 tarred nylon that goes through that. There's going to be a hole in this can, probably. I'm going to have about a 1/2 inch hole in the top of this can. I'm thinking about inserting thread me in a piece of plastic in here, maybe a male adapter. I don't know yet. I don't want sharp edges here. Don't want sharp edges to cut this, but that tarred nylon is pretty tough stuff. But it'll be a large loop. I want the knot on the loop way up here, above the can. So it'll be a double line coming down around that dog right there. It'll come around that dog, and the knot will be up here. My spring pole will be up here, and the spring pole will be pulled down to about this high off the top of that can. Then off of that there'll be another loop line comes over here to my snare. I've got to cut a little slot right here for the lock to go in, the snare lock to go in. So yeah, what I'm doing is creating these loops here, which is easy to do. Creating these loops right here, and what I do is hot glue them in too. After I twist them, I'll show you how I do that. Take your tie wire, 14 gauge tie wire, you just concrete, and take Gorilla Tape and wrap Gorilla Tape all around that roll of wire. Take your of course there's going to be some wraps around there. Take those wraps off and then completely encase that tie wire in Gorilla Tape. Then take your knife and cut a little hole out here. That way you can access your wire. Yeah, so then all you got to do is pull on this wire in the middle. It comes right up and get what you want out of it. And I'm not doubling this. I'm just using a single wire. That's all you need on this. You come around this punch here to create your loop. And you do about one twist. You grab it with your lineman pliers here, and you put about 4 wraps on it. Don't get too crazy because you don't want it too high. You don't want this distance too high. So that's that. Come over here. Drop it in these holes. To create these holes, all I did is take an awl, stuck it up here and hit it with a hammer. Yep. let's do another one here. Simple trap, guys. So if you want to make pulled pork sandwiches or whatever, you first got to catch the pig, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to catch that pig. Very simple little device. This is what I came up with for holding up the cable. You're going to have a, we're going to put a nice dog collar on this wild pig when he comes into this trap. So I just put my drift in here to line up the tube, right? I stand this up here like this, separate these, make a little half twist here, grab it with my lineman pliers, twist her up. Don't get too tight, you'll just break it off and have to do it again. There's that one. This is kind of my invention. I did it on a, well, you saw, I don't know if you went out and saw the Meat Trapper flick there. He explains it and shows you how it works, and there's some videos. All those videos are my videos that I shot on catching critters. So then I just hammer that down a little bit like that, pull that out. Done deal. Then you see they're a little floppy here. I don't want that. So I adjust them the way I like it. Take your hot glue gun. Nothing to it. Put a big old gob glue on there. Like so. All you're creating here is a little track that cable can go into. That's all you're doing. Little slot, and it's the reason I created the loops is because it's nice and smooth. It can come flying out of there. So yeah, I'm wrapping this thing up, and to hold it to the ground, you're going to have to hold this bucket to the ground. But that's not a biggie, and I'll show you what I'm going to use. All right, if you guys can envision a string loop coming down through this hole right here, about a 1/2 inch hole down through, a large loop. It's going to be up like this. The knot's going to be up above the can. I don't want any knots coming flying up and hitting the inside of this can. It'll hang it up. I don't want any. I want smooth sailing coming out of that hole. So there's a lot of pressure. This whole can is going to try to lift out of the ground because I'm going to have a pretty hefty spring on this thing. Actually, what I'm going to use is my old, found my fiberglass fishing poles. What I'm going to use to fire this thing. It's what I used on it before and caught that pig before. You saw in that video. That's the fiberglass pole I used on this rig. Now to hold this thing to the ground, here's what I'm going to use. These are called super stakes, okay? Get them at any trap supply place. They make a different kind too, but these are cool because you can put a retrieval cable on here. And I was playing with it out here in the back. I drove one in the ground with I used a 16th aircraft cable. I got a whole spool of it. And I'll bring up a loop the same height as this one, so it's coming out of the ground. So I can grab my retrieval cable and yank this out of the ground without taking a shovel and digging it up, because that's what you're going to be doing if you don't have a way to retrieve this. Or you can use brute strength. Take a you could take a 2x4, an 8-foot long 2x4, and drop a hook on it, say about a couple feet or so from the bottom of the 8-foot stud, put a hook in here and use it as a pry bar and come up out of that ground with it. You can do that too. But it's very easy to put a retrieval cable on here, 16th, because they're rated at 480 pounds, and you can snatch this out of there with a hay hook. But this is going to get drove in the ground, one on either side of this trap, and this loop here is going to, you got 18 inches of cable here, right? This thing's going to be flush with the ground here, and it's going to be well, it's going to be sticking out of the ground about like so. I will take double tie wire, hook it on here, pull it over, and cinch it up tight, and then I'll take a stick in there and I'll wind it up. That'll hold this can slapped to the ground really tight. These are going to work fantastic for that. So what I'll do is pre-bait this thing. When I set this trap, like I said, I'm going to have a wolf snare in here. It's a it's a hog wolf snare is what it is, and it's got a cam action on it. Actually, here's one right here. Where is it? Oh, it's in here. Here it is in here. This is all I use. Here's actually one that I caught a hog on right here. It's called a cam lock. These are very cool. I got to fight to get it out of there. But anyway, what happens, this is your loop here, and this is what pulls. This is what pulls here. This is the sliding part of it. And this little rig is going to be up in here. Okay? It's going to be up in here. This cable is going to be all around here, 8th cable. This stuff is tough. You can bring down an elephant with this. Put this baby up in here. There'll be a little slot cut. I'll cut a little slot in here so I can get this back inside. This other loop coming over here, the entire snare is going to go through this loop, an additional loop, and then I'm going to open it up and put it in this track right here. Okay, so it's in there like that. When that thing fires, this line right here goes this way and tightens up, and as the animal pulls, the other side of the loop, here's your cam action. It pulls down like this and pinches and jams that cable in. So no matter how hard he pulls, he can't get this thing off. All he can do, if he keeps jerking on it, he will literally choke himself out, because this thing keeps, every time he jerks, this cable here goes this way, and this keeps tightening up. So it just keeps cinching up. That's the way a snare works. I make my own too. Here's one for, you can catch rabbits with this, or you can catch raccoons and possums with it. But here's a small snare, and all this is a small washer. I would not put this on a pig. I would not put this on a coyote. He's just too strong. But a coon, yes. Possum, yes. I've caught hundreds of them with it. And what happens, it's the same thing. It goes down, but it binds, it tightens up. So the harder they pull, the tighter it gets. So this is just a homemade one. You can take these and use 1/4-inch washers, and you lay them flat on the, actually I lay them flat on the anvil, and I make a dimple in each side, so you don't want the drill bit to walk. And then you stick it in a vise here, and I drill this one, then I flip it over and drill that one, and then I drop it in halfway and I bend it over and with a hammer, make a 90 out of it. And the other end you can just make a loop. You can take 2 of these sleeves here, these 16th-inch ferrules, and you can do the same thing with the 1/8-inch ferrules on the 8th cable. But these small ferrules here, you can put one on and slide it on and put your cable back through, make a loop, put it back through, and then smash and leave it floating on there, and then take one more on the loose end that came through and put it on there and hammer that down tight. Then you've got what they call an adjustable snare that you can take and slide this one back and forth. When you slip it around your tree branch, your fence post, or whatever, you just slide that up, take the loose end, the long end, and pull it up, and it tightens right up and it stays right there. This is a fixed loop, but what I do on those a lot of times, just pass my snare back through and come around my post or whatever. But that's it, guys. I mean, we'll get this thing out here in the field. What I'll do with this is pre-bait it, get them used to coming. I'll put a trail camera on this thing also, because I don't want a deer getting hung up in this thing. They will come in and hit this corn, but once the hogs come in, the deer may be coming in first too. They may even hit it first. Then once the hogs come in and hit this thing, they own it. They come every day and hit this thing. So you have to daily bait it, you know, and once they start hitting, let them get comfortable for a few days hitting this thing. You want them charging in here like wild critters and hitting this bait. And when they do, your snare's going to be in here. I'm going to have dirt in here too, all the way up to this board right here. I'm also painting this whole can, kind of camo it. Not that it really makes a difference to the hog. I just want to camo it from keep people from seeing it so much. I'm going to spray it this flat. It's a flat brown. Yeah, to kind of blend in, you know. So that's what I do. I'm going to spray paint the inside and the outside. Let it air out good before I take it to the field. But this trap should work good. I'm a little concerned with the depth of the trigger, but you know, if his snout is in here this far, or if he's in here working around trying to get the corn back in, I'm going to have corn piled up all back in here. I don't want a bunch of corn up under here because I want this action here. But they'll keep eating it. But thing, I put this bar in here so we don't lift up. A hog wants to come in and lift all the time, right? Get us and plow up. Well, you can't do that with this in here. The only thing you can do here is drop it. And I had an issue with that last trap I built. They kept pushing it up. Well, then my trigger went fire. But eventually they get so hungry, they're goofing around in here. Finally they hit it and it'll drop on them. But I want to prevent that, so I'm going to keep it, you know, until this trigger goes one way only. So that's that. Got any questions? Leave a comment below. And I'll catch you on the next one, guys. See ya.